Here we go.
I don't care if they talk shit. I don't talk to hypocrites. If you hate me, that's just fine. Go on down and get in line. They try to tell me what I need, and it sure ain't nothing good for me. Don't care what they say, it's all just talk. Gonna head my way and walk my walk. They try to bend me, but I won't break. I pay no mind to the noise they make. I keep my head, I hold my ground. Ain't no man gonna knock me down. They can swing, but I won't flinch. I was built for times like this. So talk your shit, but be aware. I don't care. I've seen lies dressed up like truth. Heard old men preaching to the youth. But talk is cheap and words don't last. I let my work speak for my past. Can't keep me down, I still stand tall. Even when my back's against the wall. Lost some friends when times got tough. But the ones that stayed are more than enough. They try to bend me, but I won't break. I pay no mind to the noise they make. I keep my head, I hold my ground. Ain't no man gonna knock me down. They can swing, but I won't flinch. I was built for times like this. So talk your shit, but be aware. They can drag my name through the dirt. It won't stop me, I've been through worse. Every scar is a lesson learned, and every bridge was made to burn. They try to bend me, but I won't break. I pay no mind to the noise they make. I keep my head, I hold my ground. Ain't no man gonna knock me down. They can swing, but I won't flinch. I was built for times like this. So talk your shit, but be aware. I don't care.
Good evening, everybody. Unfiltered with James is created solely for informational and entertainment purposes. The views and opinions expressed by the host, James Feeney, and any guest are their own and do not represent any organization, employer, or affiliate, past or present. Nothing discussed on this podcast should ever be interpreted as professional, legal, medical, or expert advice. Listeners are strongly encouraged to verify information independently and seek qualified professional guidance when necessary. This show is intentionally raw, direct, and unapologetic. If that makes you uncomfortable, this may not be the podcast for you. Listen at your own risk. Let me turn the volume up here so everybody can make sure they can hear me here. There we go. Okay. Good evening, everybody. How are we doing tonight? I see James here, Kim's there. Frank, how you doing, buddy? Hazel's online. I see. Okay, tonight's podcast is going to be a very interesting topic. I made a comment earlier. Tonight's podcast is going to be about a topic that most people don't want to talk about. Most people want to hide when you talk about it. Politicians don't want to discuss it, especially those on the far, far left don't want to talk about this topic. So let's get tonight's show started, shall we? Okay, tonight's topic is going to be about a concealed carry castle doctrine and community responsibility. Tonight we're talking about something that makes some people uncomfortable, and that's exactly why we need to talk about it. Concealed carry castle doctrine and what responsibility actually looks like here in Garfield Heights. So let's start with this. In Ohio, the law recognizes your right to defend yourself. The law recognizes your right to carry. The law recognizes your right to defend your home under the Castle Doctrine. That's not controversial. That's constitutional. The Second Amendment of the United States Constitution was written for convenience. It was written because the founders understood something simple. The right to self-defense is fundamental. Let me repeat that. The right to self-defense is fundamental. And in a world where police response times aren't instant and crime doesn't wait politely for backup, that right matters. Especially in working class communities like ours. Now let's bring this home. In Garfield Heights, we've seen residents worried about safety. We've seen concerns about crime. We've seen neighbors asking, what do I do if this happens to me? Here's the truth. Law-abiding citizens carrying legally are not the problem. I'm going to repeat that. Law-abiding citizens carrying legally are not the problem. Criminals don't follow concealed carry laws. Criminals don't apply for permits. Criminals don't read statutes. Responsible gun owners do. The single mom walking to her car at night needs this. The small business owner closing up shop. The father hearing glass break at 2 a.m. Those are the people the Second Amendment protects. But here's where leadership and maturity come in. Being pro-Second Amendment does not mean being pro-recklessness. Carrying a firearm is a mindset shift. It requires training, situational awareness, emotional discipline, knowing when not to act. The Castle Doctrine gives you the legal right to stand your ground in your home. It does not give you permission to escalate arguments. It does not replace judgment. It does not eliminate the moral weight of using deadly force. If you carry, you are choosing to carry responsibility, not just a firearm. And here's something that needs to be said clearly. Supporting the Second Amendment and wanting safer streets are not opposites. In fact, they go together. Strong communities are built on two things: law-abiding citizens, clear consequences for criminals. You don't weaken good people to stop bad ones. You strengthen good people and hold criminals accountable. Let me say that again. You strengthen good people and hold criminals accountable. What Garfield Heights needs isn't fear. It isn't panic. It isn't political grandstanding. It needs clarity. We can respect the Constitution. We can defend the right to carry. We can acknowledge Castle Doctrine. And we can still promote responsibility, de-escalation, and serious training. That's not contradiction. That's maturity. Because here's the uncomfortable reality. If something happens, the police will investigate. The courts will examine every detail. Your life will never look the same again. So if you're going to carry, do it legally. Do it trained. Do it calm. Do it disciplined. Not angry. Not impulsive. Not to prove a point. Remember, the strongest gun owner in the room is usually the calmest one. I'm going to say that again. The strongest gun owner in the room is usually the calmest one. Garfield Heights deserves residents who are empowered, not reckless. We deserve leadership that respects constitutional rights, not demonizes them for political points. And we deserve a conversation that isn't driven by fear on either side. This isn't about taking rights away. It's about respecting the seriousness of those rights. Because when rights are exercised responsibly, communities are stronger. When they are treated casually, communities are fractured. And we're not here to fracture Garfield Heights. We are here to strengthen it. So let's have that conversation honestly, respectfully, and unfiltered tonight. That's my opening statement. So I want to welcome everybody to Wednesday night, Unfiltered with James. So as you gather, tonight's going to be talking about the castle law, concealed carry laws in Ohio. I did some extensive research on Ohio laws, and I just want to bring out some information for people to understand. So I just brought out just a couple of my weapons that we carry around with us when we travel, when we go to the gun range, when we're here in the house, whether I'm in the basement or when I'm in the swimming pool and stuff like that. And I know people like Frank, who's out there watching, he has a complete arsenal also in his house. I believe Kim does have a one or two, I'm not sure. So I'm just going to show people just some simple things, and these are unloaded. I unloaded them before the show. This is a SIG P380. Bought it for my wife for Christmas.
P365.
I'm sorry, 365, P365, 9mm, with a little Romeo sight on the end. Nice little small little gun for a lady if she wants to put it in her purse. You can use it if a guy wants to use it for like an ankle holster or secondary backup. That's real nice to carry. That's nice. My personal choice that I carry with me on a daily basis, like I said, they're unloaded, is a M&P 9mm. This is my personal carry weapon. I love this one. The accuracy on this one is fantastic. When we go skeet shooting, we usually take our shotguns with us. And then you have the fun stuff. I mean, not fun, but you know, we have the long range ones. We have the rifles, 5.56, and I added the stuff on there, the sights, the scope, and a nice little laser target over here on the side. I had my friend Doug add all this on it for me, so I could just, you know, add some little extra stuff onto it. If I can't hit my target from a good, you know, 500-600 yards away with this, then Frank better show me what I'm doing wrong. So, but these are just some ideas and samples of stuff that we have that we like to take with us when we go shooting. Everybody has their own personal preference. These are just some of ours. The reason why I'm showing this is to tell everybody, no matter what you have, what you carry, you must be responsible gun owners. Clean them, take them apart, whether you use them or not. Okay? I try to clean mine at least once every 2 weeks, once every month if possible. Whether you're using it or not, it's sitting there, it's gathering dust. Treat your weapon, okay? It's not a toy. Keep it locked up. When you're not home, make sure it's locked up tight somewhere in a safe. You know, so we're going to go over this tonight. So tonight I want to talk about the Ohio Castle Doctrine. Ohio Castle Doctrine, the codified ordinances RC 2901.05 and 2901.09. It permits residents to use force, including lethal force for self-defense within their homes or vehicles without a duty of retreat. The law presumes a person acts in self-defense when protecting themselves against an intruder in their residence, provided they have a reasonable belief of imminent danger of death or great bodily harm. So if you're at home and somebody's kicking in your door and they break into your house and you feel your life is being threatened, this applies. The law presumes a person acts in self-defense when protecting themselves against an intruder in their residence, provided they have a reasonable belief of imminent danger of death or great bodily harm. This falls under the Castle Doctrine. Key aspects of Ohio's Castle Doctrine and self-defense laws. No duty to retreat. Residents have no duty to retreat from their residence or vehicle before using force. So if you're in a car and somebody tries to harm you and you feel your life is being threatened, this law applies. Okay, you don't have to put your car in park and jump out and run away. Okay, the Castle Doctrine protects you in your vehicle. So it says no duty to retreat. Residents have no duty to retreat from their residence or vehicle before using force. So this is important. Hey, is there a reason why I can't see comments?
There are any.
Okay. Okay, so that follows under the Castle Doctrine. Okay. Now you have the Stand Your Ground extensions. As of April 2021, this protection was expanded, removing the duty to retreat in any place where a person is lawfully allowed to be, providing they are not the aggressor. So if you're somewhere and you're minding your own business and somebody's there to do you harm and you feel your life is in danger, as long as you're not the one starting the problems, this law applies. Okay? It says, removing the duty to retreat in any place where a person is lawfully allowed to be, providing they are not the aggressor. So if I'm minding my own business, I'm with a group of friends, I'm with my family, my kids, and someone comes in wielding a knife, chasing after, and they want to harm me, I feel my life is in danger, I pull out my 9mm, and I shoot and I kill. This law protects me. The conditions for use of force. To justify deadly force, the user must be lawfully present in a home, vehicle, or location, have an honest and reasonable belief that they are in imminent danger of death or great bodily harm, and not be the initial aggressor. So if I go there and I'm the one who starts the trouble, and the guy turns around and starts kicking my ass, and I turn around and I shoot him, and they find out I initiated it, well, guess what? I'm going to jail for murder. So I started it, the guy's beating me up, and I decided, well, I'm getting my ass whooped, I'm going to shoot the guy, then I'm the aggressor because I started the fight. Well, this law does not protect me. The definition of castle. The castle includes one's home, attached portions of the home, and vehicles, including those owned by immediate family. So I could go to my son's house, and this applies. There is civil immunity. The law generally protects individuals using authorized self-defense from civil liability, preventing victims of crime from recovering damages. So that's important to remember that. Now, I found all this on Ohio laws. So you could go to the website and you can look, but the laws change a lot. So I always ask people, and I tell people to make sure you go to the websites for Ohio laws and double check all the time, because they always update the laws. They always change these laws. But there are limitations. It says the castle law is not absolute. It does not authorize arbitrary force if it is not necessary for protection. The stand your ground provision applies to public places, but the original castle protection is specifically tailored to one's home and vehicle. So they made changes to the laws. They have expanded it and stuff. So always double check, go to the websites, make sure you know what the laws are, because you want to make sure you're protected, first of all, okay? Sorry about that. So you want to make sure you're protected. And like I said, they always change the laws. And it's it's better to be safe than sorry, so to speak. So this is a touchy subject for a lot of people. Because if you're not careful, you're going to wind up being punished in the end, and you don't want that to happen. Remember, the criminals don't care about the laws. You should. Be a responsible gun owner. If you're going to, especially if you're going to conceal carry, you have a permit. You want to make sure you're doing things by the book. You want to make sure you're doing everything right. Okay, now concealed carry. This is a good one. We took the classes. We have our concealed carry permits. I don't have my license on me to show anybody, but it looks like a driver's license. You get a concealed carry permit. It just tells you took the class and you have a permit to carry your license. It's good for usually 5 years before you have to renew it. But in Ohio, the rules for carrying a concealed weapon on a motorcycle, because I have friends who ride motorcycles, and we were looking into it, what's the laws for carrying on a motorcycle, and it's simple. It's pretty much like a car. So in Ohio, the rules for carrying a concealed weapon on a motorcycle are the same as those for any motor vehicle. Since Ohio adopted the permitless carry in 2022, qualifying adults, those 21 and over, and not legally prohibited from owning a gun, have the same rights as those with the concealed handgun license, CHL. So on a motorcycle, there are rules for a motorcycle, which is interesting. Loaded carry. Now these are going to be for people who have motorcycles. Okay, loaded carry. If you are a qualifying adult, you may carry a loaded handgun on your person or in your motorcycle storage compartments, example, saddlebags, tank bags, or glove box while riding. You can also open carry on a motorcycle. You may also open carry make it visible while on your motorcycle, providing you are legally allowed to possess that firearm. Now, if a police stops you, okay, if you are stopped by law enforcement, and I did not know this. If you are stopped by law enforcement, you are not required to immediately volunteer that you have a weapon unless the officer asks you. However, you must answer truthfully if they do. And I'll get into that law later on in this show. Okay? So you don't have to tell him right away, I have a gun, unless he asks. And I'll explain why later. When you have a motorcycle and your storage, how to store the gun when you're parked. If you leave your motorcycle, the firearm must be locked in a closed compartment or container on the bike, such as a locked saddlebag or trunk. If you are parked on private property, that permits firearms in vehicles. Okay, they still have the same kind of prohibited locations. You still cannot carry a firearm in gun-free zones, such as courthouses, police stations, and school buildings. Okay. They have a classification, category here that says important cautions for motorcycles. Okay, it says, if you do not meet the qualifying adult criteria for permitless carry, any firearm you transport must be unloaded and kept in a closed case or compartment that requires you to leave the vehicle to access it. Now, there's a special note here, okay, which was quite interesting. Let me go over here. It says, in Ohio, I'm sure it's like this in every state, I would imagine, except probably for California, they probably have their own rules. But in Ohio, lying to a police officer about having a gun is generally not a felony, but is a serious first-degree misdemeanor. That blew my mind. A misdemeanor, okay? Which I thought would be worse than that. But apparently it's not, okay? Under Ohio Revised Code 2923.16, I know Vanessa loves these codes like I do. Under Ohio Revised Code 2923.16, while you are no longer required to volunteer that you have a firearm, you must answer truthfully if the officer asks. Now the penalties, which is interesting, okay? Let me turn this off here because this ain't working. It says, the first degree misdemeanor, failing to disclose or lying about a firearm when asked is punishable up to 180 days in jail and a fine up to $1,000. So if the police officer asks if you have a firearm, you say no, and they find out you do, it's a first degree misdemeanor, punishable up to 180 days in jail and a fine up to $1,000. I thought it would be worse than that. Possible license suspension. If you have a concealed handgun license, a CHL, if you're convicted, a conviction will result in an automatic 1-year suspension of that license. Falsification charges. I'm saying I got low battery on this. I've been charging all this time. So, falsification charges. You could also be charged under Ohio Revised Code 2921.13 for making a false statement to a public official, which is also typically a first-degree misdemeanor, which is very, very interesting.
Get back.
When it could become a felony. When lying about having a gun is a misdemeanor, related actions can reach felony levels. Here's how it is. When you lie on a purchase application, providing false information to buy a firearm is actually a 5th-degree felony. When lying to obtain a CHL, which is making a false statement to get a permit, is a 4th-degree felony. Aggravated factors, if the firearm is used in a commission of a crime, or you are already prohibited person, let's say you're a committed felon, you would likely face multiple charges on the possession itself. So if you're a felon and you have a gun, you're done. Okay. And Ohio actually gave me some tips. Okay. On what to do if you get stopped by a police officer. If stopped, they say, stay calm. Plain simple, stay calm. Keep your hands visible. If asked about a weapon, the safest legal path is to answer, yes, I am armed, and follow the officer's instructions exactly what he says. Don't do nothing stupid. Just follow the instructions of the officer.
No reaching.
It says, while Ohio law no longer requires you to volunteer information unasked, experts and law enforcement recommend a specific protocol to keep the encounter safe and professional. Remember, always act professional, no matter what, whether you're carrying, you don't carry. If you ever get stopped by a police officer, maintain a professional attitude at all times. That's the best thing to do. Okay, and this same thing they say with a motorcycle. If you get stopped, pull over in a well-lit area and turn off your engine. I'm sure that applies for a car also. Keep your hands visible on the handlebars, on the top of your thighs, you know, if you have a motorcycle. Don't reach for your wallet or registration until the officer asks for it. Can you go in my bag and get me my other headphones? These are down here.
What bag?
The black bag there, please. They say calm notification. If you choose to inform the officer, or if they ask, use a business-like tone. They say avoid using words gun. So don't say gun to an officer, because that kind of is a scary word to use. Okay? They say you should say something like, officer, for your safety and mine, I would like to let you know that I'm legally carrying a concealed firearm. It is located on my right hip, in my tank bag, wherever it's located. How would you like me to proceed? Thank you. They say, make no sudden movements. Okay? That scares the officer when you make sudden movements. Once you inform the officer, stop moving. Wait for their specific instructions. So you got stopped. You told the officer you had a gun. Now you put the ball in his court. You wait for him to tell you what to do now. If they ask you for your ID, they say explain to the officer where the ID is located. I do this all the time. If I get stopped by a cop, I tell them, hey, I got my wallet's in my jacket. It's in my pants pocket. How would you like me to get it for you? Okay, and they say, explain where it's located. My license is in my left jacket pocket. Is it okay if I reach for it? Stay calm. Don't escalate the situation. They say follow the orders. If the officer asks to temporarily secure your firearm for the officer's safety, the law allows them to do so. Never touch your firearm yourself unless they specifically instruct you to do so. Now this I did not know. Under Ohio Revised Code, this is a revised code again, Vanessa. Under Ohio Revised Code 2923.126, it is a felony to knowingly touch or attempt to touch your handgun while a law enforcement officer is approaching or has stopped your vehicle unless the officer specifically tells you to do so. So if a cop stops you, the officer stops you, and you start reaching for it without him telling you, that's a felony. I did not know that. That's pretty interesting to find out. So, this is, everything's, my microphone just died out on me. Why is my microphone died? Let's see what this says. You got to excuse me, everybody. My microphone just died here.
You can still hear you from the phone.
Okay. So I'm hoping you can still hear me here. There we go. Okay, everybody. I had to just switch plugs around. So, this is a lot. I know there's a lot of information to grasp at the time. But like I said, always check the Ohio laws to better understand everything. They change a lot. But there was something I did not know in Ohio. There was a law for there's a federal law. It's called the 1,000-foot rule, which is very, very interesting. The 1,000-foot rule, under the Gun-Free Zone Act, which is the GFSZA, it is a federal crime to possess a firearm within 1,000 feet of a K through 12 school. Now, before you panic, let me read the rest of this. The license exemption. If you are only exempt, you are only exempt from this 1,000-foot rule, 1,000-foot federal rule, if you hold a valid CHL license issued by the state where the school is located. So, if you have a license, this law does not apply. The permitless carry risk. Ohio permitless carry law does not satisfy this federal exception. If you are carrying permitless, and this is weird because then it says, and ride within 1,000 feet of the school, even on a public road, you are technically in violation of a federal law unless the gun is unloaded and in a locked container. So, Ohio is a constitutional carry state. So I have to see how this law applies now. So you can't carry on school property unless you have a CHL license. You could have it on your property while you're in your car. You can't leave your car and walk around the school property with a gun. That's against the law. But as long as you're sitting in your vehicle, you can have your gun on your property. You leave your car, you got to have it locked up. This permitless carry 1,000-foot law of the school says even on a public road, you are technically in violation of the federal law unless the gun is unloaded and locked in a container. So I'm going to have to seek legal advice on this one. I'll call around and find out. My question is, if you are going with the Ohio constitutional carry law, and let's say I don't have a license and I'm driving down the street, driving down Turney Road, and I get stopped by the cops, and we're stopped right by the high school.
You're in violation.
I'm in violation of that 1,000-foot law. That's a federal offense. So that's a technicality. But the law says I'm in violation of the federal law. So this I have to really look into that one because I think there's a little bit of a gray area with that one. I'm not sure. But it says the permitless carry risk, Ohio's permitless carry law does not satisfy this federal exception. If you are carrying permitless and ride within 1,000 feet of a school, even on a public road, Turney Road, the Boulevard, Maple Leaf, whatever streets we have going around these schools, you are technically in violation of a federal law unless the gun is unloaded and in a locked container. So if you have it unloaded and locked up, then that's different. But if you are constitutional carrying and it's loaded, well,
It's because you're in your car.
according to this, it's your violation. So we'll have to see how that goes. So number 2, Ohio state law, the property line rule. Here's another revised code for you, Vanessa. Ohio Revised Code 2923.122. It says it's slightly different. State restrictions generally apply to the actual school property, which is building, grounds, buses, or activities, rather than a 1,000-foot buffer. Pick-up, drop-off exceptions. If you have a valid CHL, like I was mentioning earlier, you may have a handgun in your vehicle on school property only if you are in process of picking up or dropping off a person and the gun remains in your vehicle. If you leave your vehicle, the gun must be locked inside. Now, I asked Vanessa this question earlier. I'm in my car and I'm waiting to pick up my kid from school. And a teacher comes out and says, "Hey, Jim, I would like to meet with you. Can you come inside?" Well, I have to go lock my gun up now in the car. But my lockbox is in the trunk of my car. Now, in order to do so and lock it up properly, I have to leave my car, go to the trunk of my car, and lock it up. Well, as soon as I leave my car and I might have my gun on me, I am in violating the law now. That's a felony. But I just can't leave my gun not locked up. You can't put it under the seat of your car. You can't put it in your glove box if your glove box don't lock. Like my car, the glove box don't lock. So how do you do this without violating the law?
Unloaded.
But you still can't leave it, whether it's unloaded or not, you still can't leave it just in your car. So there's something I have to find out about this one, because this one's really going to bother me, because I got to look into this one. Because there's a lot of times I get called into a meeting, I have the basketball coach wants to meet with me, and I go to the high school. I'm not leaving my gun at home, because I have, if I do, they say leave it at home. That's my Second Amendment rights to carry. I'm not going to just give up my rights just to go have a meeting with somebody. So we have to look into this one. And then Vanessa mentioned something to me about Ohio having a House Bill 99, which I did not know about. Ohio House Bill 99 was passed by the legislature, and signed by Governor Mike DeWine on June 13, 2022. And it was becoming effective on September 12, 2022. Now, House Bill 99 allows local school boards to authorize teachers and staff to carry firearms on school grounds, with significantly reduced training requirements compared to the previous law. Key details of House Bill 99. Okay, local control. Board of Education decides whether to arm staff. It is not a state mandate. The training requirements. Personnel must complete up to 24 hours of initial training, followed by optional annual training. Notifications. Districts must publicly notify the community if they authorize staff to be armed. The Safety Center. The law codifies the Ohio School Safety Center to oversee the training. This legislation was enacted to override a 2021 Ohio Supreme Court decision that requires teachers to have over 700 hours of training to carry, which effectively banned the practice. So, I can't see your comments. I don't know why your comments aren't coming up here. So I can't really see your questions tonight, and I apologize for that. See, I can't even get on my other laptop. But anyways, so this is what I wanted to talk about tonight. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with being a gun owner. A lot of responsibility that comes with carrying a gun. A lot of responsibility in general. Lately in Garfield Heights, we have been hearing gunshots. Just the other day, 3 shots on Havana. 2 different gunshots calls over there by the Boulevard Warner Road area. So this is something serious, people, that we must really consider. And I tell everybody, if you're going to want to carry for defense, take the class. And I tell everybody that, take the class. I do believe it's still a 10-hour class. You can go online and look up to see where the classes are. They're not hard to find. You could just go online and just look them up. They'll be real easy to find somewhere. But take the class. Be a responsible gun owner. And have a sense of pride when you carry. Let me turn this off here. So it's just that you have so many people out there. So it's just that you have so many people out there that just don't want to take the responsibility of being a responsible gun owner nowadays. Train as often as you can. You can go to Palmer Armory for training. Wayne renews his you renew yours in May. Good, that's good.
I think ours is next year.
Mine and my wife's are next year. And we renew ours in Geauga County because that's where we got ours the first time. Because it was the same day we boom got in, got out. But yeah, so it is best to
Oh, there they go.
practice. Go to the range, practice. You got the one on Canal Road. I forgot the name of that one. But then you got Stonewall, Palmer Armory, which is the one. We're going to Palmer Armory on Saturday. We're going to do some shooting on Saturday at Palmer Armory. We'll be there around 11 o'clock in the morning. If anybody wants to join us, just come on down. This is no joke, people. It's a sad world we live in where people have to think of first, get dressed and do what you have to do. And when you leave the house, the first thing I do after I leave is, before I leave the house, is make sure I bring this with me everywhere I go. And you shouldn't have to live like that. And that's pretty sad when you have to put on your clothes, put on your shirt, and get ready to leave the house and, oh, do I have my gun? Because you live in a society where the criminals don't care. And that's just the fact. You're right, Vanessa, especially in our city. And we have right now too many people willing to look the other way, and too many people. The problem is we have too many people to say, oh, if you don't like it, move. Well, if everybody who don't like it move, then the criminals win. And we can't let that happen. I sit at McDonald's. I open carry in a lot of places, in a lot of businesses. I open carry, and they don't mind. I was at the one restaurant with my friend on Rockside. I walked in. I had my gun out. I open carried inside by mistake. I didn't know. Because I open carry in a lot of places. And as I sat down, people were staring at me, and I was wondering why. And my friend George told me, he said, hey, Jim, they're staring because your gun's out. I said, oh, shoot, I forgot. So I took my shirt, I covered it up. And the manager comes over to me, and he goes, oh, no, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I had it. So I covered it up. He goes, no, I want it to be seen. And I was like, why? He goes, well, I'm hoping if people are walking around with their guns out that have, they're legally allowed to carry, and I told him I had a license. He goes, maybe that'll deter people from coming in here to want to start trouble. So you have places that don't mind this. They actually were like happy, and the people that were there were staring because they were actually happy I was carrying in there. And people nowadays are starting to realize and feel more comfortable. But if you're walking in with a hood, a mask, and then, and you look like you're going to start trouble, people are going to be more, how could I say, likely to call the police. But I do carry everywhere I go. Everybody, and I know everybody in this city knows by now. And even when I approach the officers in the city, just to talk to them and say hi, I let them know, hey, look, I'm James Feeney, and I just want to let you know I do carry. Just want to come over and say hi, and they all know I carry anyways. But be a responsible gun owner. Take the class. Getting like the Old West. Yeah, Bob, you're right. Robert, you're right. You know, it's sad to say, but you're right. It is. It's our community's gotten a lot worse than it should be. You know, what does he say? The lovely mayor tells people all the time, if you don't like it, move. I think it's yeah. You know, Ken, he does tell everybody, if you don't like it, move. You know, I mean, it's pretty sad when you have a mayor telling people to move out of the city. It's, you know, everybody, what's your opinion for tonight about the information that I gave? I know that's a lot of information I gave, and I rushed through it a little bit. If you want me to go over some more of this stuff a little bit differently, if you want me to read over some more of it, I'm more than willing to go over it before I give you my closing statement that I wrote. Tonight's episode was supposed to be about accountability, which also, if you could tie it in with the gun, you know, concealed carry, you know, it is pretty much, you know, being accountable for carrying. But there was a lot of information tonight that was handed out, like that 1,000-foot rule. I mean, that was interesting to me. What do you think about the information that was given out tonight? Would you like me to go over anything else about this? Because there's a lot of revised codes in here. And like I said, there's a lot of states that if you have a concealed carry handgun, and this is what I tell everybody, get the license. Get the license. The reason why is if you go constitutional carry, it's only good for the state of Ohio constitutional carry. Okay, let's say Pennsylvania, you'll never say Michigan because they ain't gonna do it. But let's say Pennsylvania, and let's just say Michigan, and let's say, okay, they're constitutional carry. You go from Ohio and you're gonna go shop in Pennsylvania. Okay, you take your gun with you and Pennsylvania's constitutional carry. Well, that only applies to their residents' constitutional carry. If you have a CHL, concealed handgun license, Pennsylvania accepts the handgun, the license. So there's a lot of states that will accept it. So that's the good thing. Right now I'm going to type it up. Let's see who does this. Whoop. Let's go back here. Let's see how many states accept Ohio CHL license. Let's see how many states accept Ohio's concealed carry handgun license. Here's the list of states. The reciprocity law. Okay. Reciprocity states, or where Ohio CHL is recognized. Okay. Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New Hampshire, New Mexico, North Carolina, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. And it says important, laws change frequently, like I've been telling you. Some states may recognize Ohio CHL for only residents, or if only the permit meets certain criteria. Always check current laws of that state, of the state you plan to carry before traveling. Okay? The states that do not accept the Ohio CHL is California, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island. Also, Washington, D.C. typically is not included. What's that? That's not what I heard. If you're traveling, oh, okay. If you're traveling to state to state, you have to check.
He wants to know if he's allowed to put landmines in his front yard.
Are you allowed to put landmines in your front yard? Only if your dog takes a big enough crap, I guess. So you know, there's a lot to There's a lot to grasp here. But I tell everybody, check the laws. Always, always check the laws. We were going to New York one time, and I called, and I wanted to ask, and I said, hey, look, I want to bring my gun with me. I'm not going to carry it. I just want to have it with me in case we break down on the highway traveling to protect my family. Jersey said no, and New York says no. We only allow 2 people to carry it, and one we're trying to get rid of. The cops and the criminals carry, and we're trying to take it away from them. So it's just that always call the highway patrol in that state. Always call, double check if you're not sure. We shop in Pennsylvania all the time, so I know the laws in Pennsylvania, so I'm always carrying when I go to Pennsylvania anyways. But always, always do. You're right, Deb. I mean, the laws are changing, and this current administration in the White House is trying to get it to where if you have a a concealed carry permit, that all 50 states have to accept it, which would be nice if we could get that to happen. So I'm going to make my closing statement tonight before we continue this. Let me close with this. Wait, what's that? I'm all in concealed to carry, but I don't like that you don't need to permit anymore. I think you should have to at least. Hold on, let Hazel expand that for me.
At least take a safety course to carry, because I'm always afraid of someone that doesn't know how to use a gun properly can get a gun and carry.
Ken, we were at I think it was Matt, Doug's kid, Matt was getting his license, or somebody was getting his license, and this lady was walking around. We were watching them do their shooting portion of their test, and she turned around and pulled the trigger, and that bullet whizzed right by our ass. I think it was me, and was it Frank was there? It was Patty was getting her license. Wasn't it Patty? I think Frank's wife, Patty, was getting her license, and that bullet whizzed by our head. We were scared shitless. Now, she should have been thrown out of that class automatically, but she was banging the instructor, so they passed her, which shocked the hell out, because it scared the rest of us. We were all reaching for our guns. We were going to shoot back at this woman, because the way she did it, I mean, she scared us all. So let me close with this. In Ohio, concealed carry and castle doctrine are not loopholes. They are legal rights. They exist because the right to self-defense is fundamental. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution doesn't come with an asterisk that says only when convenient. But here's what separates a serious conversation from political noise. Rights demand responsibility. If you choose to carry in Ohio, you are making a decision that carries weight, legal weight, moral weight, permanent weight. Castle doctrine means you don't have a duty to retreat in your own home. It does not mean you have a duty to escalate. Concealed carry means you can protect yourself. It does not mean you're looking for confrontation. The strongest defender of the Second Amendment should also be the strongest advocate for discipline, training, and judgment. Because here's the truth. No one likes to say this out loud. The moment a firearm is used, everything changes. Listen to that. The moment a firearm is used, everything changes. Investigations happen. Families are affected. Lives are altered, sometimes forever. That's why responsible gun ownership isn't about bravado. It's about restraint. It's about understanding the law better than the critics do. It's about knowing that protecting your life or your family is the last resort, not the first reaction. In communities like ours, Garfield Heights, where people work hard, raise families, and want to feel safe in their own homes, the right to defend yourself matters. And so does the responsibility to exercise that right wisely. You don't strengthen a city by weakening law-abiding citizens. Let me say that again. You don't strengthen a city by weakening law-abiding citizens. You strengthen it by empowering responsible ones and holding criminals accountable. That's the balance. That's the maturity. That's leadership. So support the Constitution. Know the law. Train seriously. Carry responsibly. And remember, the goal of self-defense is not to win a fight. It's to go home safely. That's where this conversation begins and ends. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight on James Unfiltered. Stay safe. Remember, if you see something, say something. Tune in Friday for Friday Follies. And remember, it's always better to be the rider than the donkey, because we have a lot of donkeys in this city. God bless you. God bless Garfield Heights. I'll see you Friday, 7:30, Friday Follies. Thanks for watching.